Ciao guys, Tarvud here. So VR on PC works on 3 different ecosystems. There will be the VIVE, Oculus and Windows Mixed Reality. And all of these 3, they have to rely to 3 major things. One will be the screen, so the HMD that we are using, the head-mounted display. The second one will be the PC that we are using to run it, so how does it perform and everything. And the third one will be the way we interact with it. That is mouse and keyboard for the PC and will be our controller for a console. And in VR, we have to add a 4th part that will be the tracking. That is super important because it tells us where the controller is in our virtual space. So that's why I decided to divide in 5 parts this video, where we're gonna talk about what is the best VR controller out there in the market, and will be divided in tracking, build quality, battery situation, ergonomics, and feelings overall. So let's start with the first one to see what's the best controller in VR for tracking. Here we are with our 3 controllers. We have mixed reality here, will be the Samsung Odyssey one. Let me turn it on so you can see the LED, the Oculus and the Vive ones. So what is the difference with these 3? 2 of these use very similar technology and one is slightly different, a lot different to be honest. Mixed reality and Oculus, they use a constellation tracking method. So what does it mean? You can really see it in the mixed reality where these LED are turned on. So with the cameras that we have in front of our headset, we're gonna be able to track where these controllers are in the space. And that's the same thing is gonna happen with the touch controller for Oculus, where the LED are not noticeable for human eyes, but are there. So the cameras for the tracking are gonna recognize them and they're gonna tell us where is the controller in our gaming area. A lot different for the Vive, where you use the lighthouses, and the method is like opposite, where it's the controller that receive the infrared rays from the lighthouses, and via Bluetooth is gonna bring the information to the computer, then it's gonna understand where is the controller in the space. So the third one will be the mixed reality controllers, because you're gonna have a lot of hiccups in the tracking because we have just 2 cameras in front of our headset. They're gonna track the position and see the LED, and when they are outside the field of view, they're gonna just stay there, and the only method that you're gonna see for the movement will be the 3DOF, so 3 degrees of freedom, where it's gonna be just rotational. And so we're gonna be able to point, but not to move them anymore. They also have some sensor with the gyroscopic, so if it's in movement, I can still see even if I outside the tracking, but when you stop, it's not gonna be able to move anymore. So 3rd place for the Windows Mixed Reality one. 2nd place goes to the Oculus Touch. So the Oculus works very, very well. There were some problems at the beginning, but then Oculus fixed everything. But it's still not the best tracking out there because you need a lot of sensor, and if they are too far, it's not gonna be perfect, and they really rely on just seeing this controller. So different lights environment will create some problems sometime, outside will not be the best. So it's a great tracking, but it's not the best yet, because the best one goes to the Vive controllers. These things are the best out there because it's very hard to lose the tracking. So you're gonna always have tracking in your hands, and you're gonna have very super rare hiccups. So yeah, number 1, HTC VIVE right now. The last place go to mixed reality again. So these things are built like seems in rush. I talked about that in the Odyssey in-depth review, so feel free to check it out. The plastic is super cheap you can feel it. And the controller itself is very slippery. They didn't think about a little clip here to keep it in your hands, so it's very easy to lose. If you don't have a watch, then keep it. And all the buttons are small and are pretty close too, so you don't really know the position of these buttons. And bear in mind that when you are in VR, you don't see your controllers usually. They're gonna be replaced by a gun, they're gonna be replaced by an hand, so it has to be pretty easy to find them. And that's what isn't for these controllers. These buttons are very small. As I told in the other video, this thumbstick is very slippery, so like you just lose the grip so many times while playing. And the trackpad is very small. The texture is okay actually, but it's very small, and the clickness is just weird. The trigger buttons over here, it's mushy, I will say. Doesn't have a lot of travel, so it's hard to decide how much do you want to close it or open it. So it will be okay if you're shooting, but if you need to, like in the Oculus, to point your finger up and down, will be harder. And the gripping button is just a button, so it's not hard to keep it down. So if you want something to keep over there, but you know, it's just seems like from a previous generation. So third place for sure to the Windows Mixed Reality controllers. I will say first place to the Oculus Touch, because the Vive controllers on Reddit, we have heard a lot of people having problem with the trackpad, they stop to work, and sometimes when you hit them very hard, this part snap a little. It's easy to put back on, you just have to press it, and so it all snaps back there. The trackpad is great actually, and the buttons are very easy to find, but are very far each other. And the trigger, to be honest, I feel is the best out there for guns. If you play like shooting games, that are like actually almost 80% of the games out there will be perfect. But the gripping buttons are just stupid. These buttons are very hard to use, hard to press. It's not easy to keep them pressed. You have to press a lot, so you just use a different technique for grabbing in most of the games. And the plastic is okay. I like this rubbery part, but the build quality will go to the Oculus Touch controller over here. So it's hard plastic like the other, but has a lot of toe behind. Like it has a magnetic thing for the batteries over here. That's very nice. It's gonna just snap there. You're never gonna lose it. The strap has this little thing like in the Vive, so you're never gonna lose it. And all the buttons are very clicky, like it will be on the Xbox controller. And the thumbstick, the texture is very nice. You're never gonna lose the grip, and it's actually like all the other buttons are touch, so the controller will recognize not just when you click them, just even when you lay on them. So like these will be different from these, even if you don't click the buttons. The trigger is a little mushy, but doesn't have to be a bad thing in this case, because it has a lot of travel and is easy to decide the travel you want to give to that. So made it perfect for application like medium and quill, where you use a lot of tools, and so you have to decide how much you want to press and everything. Also, the gripping button here feels very light, so it's very easy to grab and has a lot of travel, as you can see, so you can really decide how much you want to close your hand. It's just everything feels very well told, and it's very sturdy, so even if I punch the wall like I always do with like Lone Eco or other games, like, and you can see from all the scratches around these rings, they always hold up very well. So build quality for sure goes to the Oculus Touch. Okay, talking about batteries, this could be about preference, but the last place for me goes to the Vive. just because it's the only one with integrated batteries. So what does it mean? That you're not able to swap them during the gameplay. So the battery is pretty long, it's about 6-8 hours anyway, but then it's gonna decrease a little while using it. But the big problem is like if you don't charge it every day and you're inside a long session in VR and then your batteries goes down, you have just to stop. You're not able to just snap the batteries out and keep using it, but you have to stop, recharge them, wait hours, and then you're gonna be able to play again. So third place for it. Also because in businesses maybe you need these batteries to like these controllers to be ready every time, and instead of snapping in the power every time, you just can change batteries, and that's a pretty addition. So the second place will go to mixed reality. Second place not because it's good in battery life, it's actually pretty bad. It used 2 AA batteries, so you can just swap them. It's pretty good. It uses a lot of batteries because this LED makes they're a lot brighter when you play, so they use a lot of battery power. And what you have to do is just change to, as I said in the other review, to rechargeable batteries because you're gonna use them a lot. But at least you have the possibility to just put new battery in and continue your playing session. So second place for it. And the first place will go to the Oculus Touch, where it has just 1 battery each, and the battery's life is pretty good. They are super easy to snap out and in, and so you're gonna play like forever in VR without any problem. And they're not gonna add so much weight like they do with the mixed reality controllers, so it can be a great addition. So for me, at least, number 1 goes to the Oculus Touch again. Okay, talking about ergonomics, third place goes to the VIVE. Third place because these were great because they were the first controllers that we had in VR. So everyone saw this and they tried to fix in a different way, but has to be in the third place because it's the least ergonomic of all. Are pretty uncomfortable to hold, even if they have a good weight. So like in shooting games, they just work perfectly. It's hard to like understand for new people that try VR how to keep them in their hands, and it's just not comfortable at all, where to use the trackpad is gonna put your hand in a weird position, and the grabbing buttons are in the position that is not ideal. The only great thing is actually the trigger, but overall keeping in their hands is just not very ideal. Where the second place will go to the mixed reality. Second place probably because I have the Odyssey one, so they're a little more ergonomics and rounded. All the other mixed reality are a little less comfortable actually. That's why I went for the Samsung mixed reality, but we're gonna see soon with the HP one that I just purchased to see how it's gonna hold up, and I guess this. And the ergonomics is actually better when you use the trackpad. Your hands sit pretty well and you have no problem at all. It's not the most comfortable ever, but gets the job done. And the first place again will go to the Oculus. Like, putting these on is unbelievable. They just fit so comfortable for every hand. Every person that tried the Oculus, like, you just know from the beginning how to keep this on their hand, and they just feel very natural. And that's gonna be great because it's super ergonomic and your hands are gonna be very relaxed using every application, instead of like the Vive where it's always tense and they're not laying in the best way possible. So ergonomics goes again to the Oculus Touch. Let's talk about the last part, that is feeling. And this is the most personal because it really depends on what you like to play and how it feels in your hands, how it tricks your brain to really have your hands in VR and your presence in VR. And that's pretty easy to find what's the last one, and will be again mixed reality, because they just feel very cheap in your hand. They're not good for application where you have to be precise, and they're not super good for shooting too, where the trigger is very, very mushy. So it's good because they have a lot of selection for buttons, but are not the best out there, or everything, are just not the best, are always in the middle. And I'm little sad to say it, but the second place we go to actually what is my favorite, and there's the Vive controller, because the feeling is very, very good. When you like do shooting games, it's perfect. Like I grew up like playing Halo or like Doom, Unreal. Actually Halo came after, but you get the point. And I love FPS, I love shooting games, and with these you really, really feel like you have a gun in your hand, because it's heavy enough and the trigger just feels great. And it's sad, but are not the perfect for feeling, because in application where you have to see your hands, you're not gonna feel like you have your hands there. And yes, you're gonna feel like you have a gun in your hand, but your hand are gonna be always rendered in a weird way. They're not gonna feel personal, and they're good for those applications, but not for every other thing. And that's where comes the best one, and that will be the touch controller again. Like, these things are amazing. Like, the first time you put them on, because they're so ergonomic, and because they can recognize all your fingers, they really trick your brain about like if your hands are really there, if they're tracking in some way, or just like they arrive to the position in some other ways that we don't know. Is magical. When you have them and you see your hands for the first time, you really think that those are your hands, and they trick your brain at all. And that's amazing, because these are the best yet out there. They're feeling great. The only thing they don't feel super great in the shooting games, because the trigger is a little mushy, but other than that, having your hand presence in VR is really the turning point. And that's why Valve right now is working on the knuckles to have the same thing and even better of the touch controllers. So for feeling, again, this is a personal thing probably, even if I didn't want to, but the best goes again to the Oculus Touch. And we are at the end of the video, and I feel it will be pretty easy to understand which one will be the best VR controller right now. And that's a touch controller from Oculus. I gave all the reason why they just built very well. There are a lot of details behind them. The battery swapping, for me, it's very important, and they're just super ergonomic. They really trick your brain when you see your hands in VR. So Oculus are really something to try on. When the mixed reality is really a mixed bag of some of the Vive, some of the Oculus, but they just rush it out. So this was my video about what's the best VR controllers right now out on the market. I hope I'm not gonna offend anybody, because it's really about like how the technology is going, and now everything is trying to follow up with Oculus did, and I'm glad of it, because this company are understanding the way to go, and it's all about immersion. And I'm so excited for the knuckles that are gonna come out. So those are gonna follow in your hand in a different way. So probably we're gonna have the perfect trigger for the Vive with the perfect hand presence at all, because it's gonna track every single finger. So that's great. Okay, if you liked the video, like. If you didn't like the video, dislike. But let me know in the comment below which one you think is the best controller, because for me, personally, I prefer to use so many times the Vive because I play a lot of shooting games and like the weight, and the tracking is so important for me. But what's important for you for the best VR controller? Let me know over there. And subscribe to the channel for more about VR and tech in general. I see you guys in the next video. Ciao!